Meeting of the West Newbury Selectboard Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 at 5:32 p.m. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. Meeting is also accessible by remote participation via Zoom. Announcements: the Select Board voted to close the warrant for the spring and annual town meetings, annual and special town meetings on Monday, February 6th. Sage Center News for January, February of this year, upcoming events, and see details in the current newsletter, which is available on the town website. As per usual, open positions on boards, commissions, and committees can be found at wnewbury.org/volunteer, and agendas and announcements for the town can be found at wnewbury.org/subscribe. So our meeting tonight will start off with a presentation of a lot of work that's been done by the library trustees on preparing a strategic plan for the library. And without further ado, I will hand it off.
Thanks, Archie. I'm Fred Shinanya, chair of the Library Board of Trustees, and with me is Corinne Flaherty, who's the director of the library, and my vice chair, Marcia Sellis-Moore. Thanks for meeting with us. We are happy to be here and to go over whatever it is that you would want to inquire about or ask about, and with respect to two documents, the 5-year strategic plan and then our action plan for fiscal year 2024. The schedule, those documents were both filed with the state in a timely manner. The strategic plan was filed in October, and the action plan was filed shortly before December 1st. In terms of where we are as a board of trustees,
Fred, can you so explain what that? So who are we filing it with? And I'm just curious. It just.
Well, Corinne would know because she's the one that filed it.
We filed it with the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners.
So is this an annual thing that has to be done, or?
We have to provide an action plan annually, and we provide that, you don't need to have a strategic plan on file, but if you want to be eligible to receive any grant funding through the state, you have to have a strategic plan on file.
Okay.
And if you don't have an action plan, isn't that you can't get certain monies, or is that not correct?
It's part of being state that to receive certification, you have to keep up with your annual action plans, and state certification provides each library or each municipality with a state aid award according to different criteria. We usually get about $8,000, so to speak, here or there a year through that program.
So did they see if you did last year's or they?
The board holds each library accountable for that. So they just make sure that we have a current plan on file and that it is uses the strategic plan on file as a guide, and then it's up to each library board to ensure that happens.
It is not in some ways a detailed plan where it's going to be a month by month action items. It's more an overall plan for the library to move forward and then implement as the director and as needed the board of trustees sees fit. But there is accountability in the end. The main thing is to make sure that when we file the plans, they meet the criteria for those plans and what they expect to see, and then they approve those plans. So There is some approval up front, and then, I would say oversight, but not detailed oversight by the state as we go along.
And it's a
Um,
5-year strategic plan, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
And that's updated every 5 years then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So that $8,000 roughly that you get each year, is that based on population or what's the,
It's
you know?
based on a lot of different criteria.
Yeah.
It's based on circulation, how much you circulate to neighboring communities, library attendance, there's any number of criteria that it's based on. Hours open.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
and in terms of, where the library board of trustees stands, we've been occupied this, well, let me start again. The filings are relatively recent. The action plan doesn't kick in until July 2024. So we've been busy with town requirements for budget, for annual report and things like that. We have not certainly turned to detailed implementation ideas for the action plan itself, for the coming fiscal year, because that's 6 months away.
Wait, July 2024, July 2023?
2024, this is a start.
It
Oh,
starts in 2024.
FY
It's
24.
2024.
FY 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
okay, all right. Which is,
So we don't start the plan until this coming July.
This coming July, yes.
right,
July
right, so
2024.
but July 2024 would be a year from this coming July. That's why I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just misspoke.
Yeah,
I need to usually write this down to make sure I have the right dates, especially with the annual report. No complaint there, though. So the level of items that would, for example, meet the action plan are heavily oriented towards, if you will, day-to-day operations at the library, increasing program for certain populations, things like that. They're not necessarily things that would rise to the Board of Trustees level to implement. That being said, Corinne gives us a director's report every month. And so, we work closely with her on whatever ideas there are to implement the plan. But the genesis of those ideas, for many of them, is often at the library director's level and at the staff level. And we exercise oversight, if you will. I would anticipate that we would be having more discussions in the spring as the time for implementing the action plan gets closer, more discussions on specific items or the ways that we would implement certain elements of the action plan. So we're happy to answer any questions. We're prepared to go over some highlights of the plans if you wish. If you have questions, we're happy to answer them, whatever the board is interested in doing tonight.
I would like to hear your highlights. I mean, I think that's useful.
Yeah, you talked to us for a bit, and, yeah.
Sure. You wanna hear?
The slides that you sent.
The slides are all, Angus has all the slides, yeah.
Did you want to hear highlights from the strategic plan, or do you want to just hear more real world, plans that we have going forward for FY 24 based on the strategic plan? Each of those, each of the items in our action plan correlates to a goal and an objective in our strategic plan.
Corinne, have you sent me the action plan?
No, but the last two slides of the PowerPoint, have that
Okay, because that,
information.
you might have wondered as well, because.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought,
Yeah.
I have at least a copy of it right here. I'm happy to.
The full content is in the last two slides.
Okay, so,
Okay.
that might be good, because that's not something that they.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I would think because fair number of community members participate in the strategic plan, maybe it would be good to go over, the results of that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
happy to.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
So if you wanna-
I would like to too.
Sure, I'm happy to. So then we can start the slides at the beginning. So we'll just talk a little bit about, how we got to the plan, and then the bulk of this is the goals and the objectives that were created as a result of the planning process. And the end is our FY 24 action plan. So, for this plan, the goals and objectives were based on a broad range of input. We gathered, information over a 5-month period from March to July. We had a community survey. We have just under 300 responses from that survey. We conducted in-person interviews. We had a strategic planning committee that consisted of 18 people, including myself. And that committee met twice. And then they had individual meetings, with me if people were interested in doing that to talk further. And in addition, we also reached out and, talked with the Friends of the Library, and the library staff as well to get input from them. Based on this input, the strategic planning committee established these goals and objectives, and they're designed to guide the work of the library over the next 5 years. We also created a new mission and vision statement. The new mission statement is as follows. The mission of the Gar Memorial Library as a tax-supported public library is to strengthen community connections and enrich civil society through programs, services, and collections designed to cultivate literacy, civic engagement, and cultural appreciation, as well as to preserve West Newbury's unique identity, history, and sense of place. And our vision statement is to be a haven for community connection, knowledge, and recreation. One of the things that came up continually in these meetings was that the library is a real meeting place in town, and that the small town feel of the library is what people really love about it. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name. And that's really not the kind of thing that, you encounter on a regular basis anymore. So it was really important for people to, maintain that. So our first goal was related to community, and it was to make the library a uniting force in the community. So we came up with some objectives for that, and the first one is to enrich relationships. And one of the ways that we will do that is to reimagine and grow programs that connect local residents with each other across generations. There was a lot of talk about sort of using, I don't know if any of you have heard of the human library, but where you take, just a regular person and have them speak to whatever their area of expertise is or whatever their special background is. A lot of libraries are inviting immigrants to come and talk about their experiences. So I think there was a real interest in people really connecting and having an opportunity to know each other. And a library is a great venue to do that. So that was the second one. And then the third one is to provide opportunities for social engagement and cultural diversity. The second objective in this goal is to support the schools. So the library will bring the library to the schools by being a presence in both the Page and Pentucket schools. The Page school right now just had a volunteer team sort of rehab their library, which had been defunct for a couple of years. It was kind of being used as a storage space. So we worked with them over the summer to try to get them back in business. And one of the things that we'd like to do is do some pop-up story time sessions over there, because they don't have a librarian at the school. They only have volunteers. So the children can go and use the library, but they don't have an actual librarian to help them find books or any of that. And I think Miss Kate would love to go do that. So that's one of the things that we thought we would do. And as everyone knows, it's kind of hard to drive high school students into the library. It's hard to get them there, but if we make a presence at Pentucket, I think we'll have a better chance of meeting kids where they are. So that's the plan for the middle school and the high school. The library will work to enhance the curriculum at the local schools. So, just working with teachers to get, reading material that they need. One of the other problems at the Page school is they don't have a budget for books at all. So, on Martin Luther King Day, they came in and they said, we have 3 books about Martin Luther King. What are we gonna do? So that's where the library can help them, and we can use our budget to try to complement what their needs are at the school.
Let me just say, this is just one example, and you'll probably hear a lot more. This is not going to start next July. This is something that encapsulates our vision as we go along. So some of the things have already started as we go along.
Yeah, I'm just giving examples.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It's a continuum of things we had in our mind as well as new ideas.
So would you say that in current time, that it's extraordinary that an elementary school has no presence?
Well,
No library presence of its own?
Rick, we're not gonna comment on that.
No, you could say yes or no.
I think it's
Rick.
unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that, and, if we can help fill that gap, we would like to.
Right.
And the last one is for the library to provide volunteer and learning opportunities for all school-age children in the community. So we have a lot of ideas bubbling around about this, but I think, you know, because we're such a small community, it's, in some ways, it's easier because there aren't a lot of competing places to go do volunteer work. So we get a lot of calls from kids who need to do service work. And we're trying to come up with some ideas to create programming around that.
So explain that one a little more. I'm sort of,
So, you know, a lot of the high school kids have to do volunteer work.
oh, okay, I see what you're driving at.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so we'd like to create programming around that, or, you know, where high school children can mentor younger children, or they can teach adults, depending on what they're learning in school, to try to get some cross-generational interactions happening. The third objective in this, for this goal was to preserve and provide access to West Newbury's unique cultural legacy. So the library will explore projects that will preserve the cultural heritage of the town by conserving, digitizing, and making accessible existing historical collections. Pursue new initiatives and projects that will illuminate West Newbury's past and present, and train all staff on local town resources. So this was also something that came up again and again. I think that this town is really invested in its history, but at the same time, it's hard to access that history. There's, you know, a basement here that some of it is organized and some of it isn't. The library is in the same state. It doesn't really have a specific, you know, space for an archive. We have our archival materials upstairs in the finished attic, which really isn't ideal. Things are not digitized, and so they're harder to find. So our goal is to really work with the historical commission and with the clerk's office to try to make these documents easily accessible to people, so they don't have to only wait when the town hall is open to try to access them. They can do it online from home.
And that's already underway.
It is underway, yes. The fourth objective is to increase the presence in the community by expanding partnerships with organizations that help to promote library offerings, improving awareness about services, programs, and collections, deepening its commitment to teaching patrons how to use library resources, and encouraging patrons to become library promoters in their community. So one of the things that's a little embarrassing that came up is that most people did not know what the library offered other than the regular, you know, books and children's programs. And we have so many digital resources that are really useful, you know, like online access to consumer reports, online access to the Boston Globe, the New York Times, historical papers, genealogy resources. So we want to try to get the word out about these things and promote them. I always say that librarians are librarians, they're not marketers. And it's something that we endeavor to do, to just get the word out about what we have. The next objective is to work in partnership with other town departments, boards, and committees, to collaborate with other town departments and committees and groups in a way that mutually benefits everyone in the community, to develop volunteer opportunities that cross-pollinate among town departments, and to work with the historical commission and the town clerk in the ongoing maintenance and storage of all three history collections. To educate all ages with an array of resources and materials, you know, to continue to offer a wide range of new and emerging technologies and instructions how to use them, expand our library of things, to provide a diverse collection of up-to-date information.
You may want to say what the library of things.
I will, yes, I will, I'll go back to that. and to promote democracy and political literacy, and to provide opportunities for civic engagement. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing at the library is, people are sort of transitioning now between regular books and ebooks and e-content, and people come in all the time with an iPad or a tablet or an iPhone, and my daughter gave this to me for Christmas, I don't know how to use it, or I want to download an ebook, I don't know what to do. And so we spend a lot of time training people on how to do these things. So that's one of the things that we'll continue to do, and to be at the forefront of these new technologies, so that we know about them before people do, so we can teach them about them or introduce them to them. And one of the ways that we can introduce them to them is through our library of things. So we are circulating things now, and we have a telescope that circulates. We have a record player and a record collection that was donated by John McGrath. And
You have to be over 60 to check that out.
Does it have like one of those big horns on it?
We also have snowshoes, a bird watching kit. So, we'll continue to expand this library of things that, as we get feedback from people and hear what other libraries are doing.
In your library of things, does there still reside a little device called a kilowatt that?
Yes.
Well, that's good.
Yes, that is in our library of things. Is
Okay.
that from you?
Well, that was from, I'm trying to remember, it might have been a joint purchase by members of the Energy Advisory Committee, back 10+ years ago. And, I don't remember how we funded it, but my guess is that we each threw in $10 or something and said, we'll see what works.
Well, thank you. It's still on.
Fred, you were probably, you may have been on the committee.
I may well have been there, I don't recall it.
Right, yeah. In fact, I think he's still up.
Probably. If you have a gavel, maybe we could add that to the library of things that you use. Or no, that's at the historical collection. Sorry.
I need that all the time to keep them in line.
Supposed to hit the table.
So our second goal was related to services. So collections, programs, and services reflect the needs and interests of the community. Our first, did you?
The first,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, thank you. Yeah, I did that. Thank you. The second one is to entertain residents of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. The library will expand and diversify its in-person and virtual programming with the aim to provide something for everyone. It will prioritize growing the library's collection of ebooks and other digital collections based on local demands, and will highlight cultures from around the nation and around the world. So we are part of the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium, and there's 36 libraries in that consortium. And we share a lot of resources, but we also each library collects individually for its own community. So we have certain digital subscriptions that neighboring libraries may not. So if you don't have a West Newbury card, you can't use that particular resource. So some of these things are particular to West Newbury, and some are shared resources, but we look to continue to subscribe to things and collect things that are just specific to West Newbury or for West Newbury patrons. There was a lot of interest in highlighting cultures from around the world. We're a fairly non-diverse community, and there is an interest in learning more about the world, and so that's one of the things that we will endeavor to do. And our virtual programming has continued to just expand since COVID. It's we've never really stopped. We've continued to expand on our virtual programming, and we get many more people virtually than we ever did before. So been a positive change.
The one good thing. from
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah, there you go.
So Corinne, I'm sorry if I missed this, but how do you measure local demand? What are your, how do you gain that information? Is that from verbal people being at the library, or do you actually look at searches? Is there any sort of collection of data from searches
There's a number of ways, so, you know, one of the things is just, ears out with the
Yeah,
community and
yeah.
hearing what people are interested in. I also get monthly reports for everything that circulates, so I can break down all the nonfiction sections and say, oh, we keep cookbooks with most popular things, or books about, well, you know, whatever it is, I can see what people are interested in that way.
In terms of internet searches though,
Mhm.
I think that would raise privacy concerns.
Yeah, we don't
So,
know what
really
everyone searches.
Can't do that, I don't.
And we don't know what people are personally checking out or looking at, you know, I don't get a report on that, but I get, you know, a general report of everything that's circulated from each area of the library.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about internet searches, but if you're not logged in as an individual, then there's no connection between.
We still don't.
But that's fine, I was
Yeah.
just curious, yeah.
But that would be, for example, it's a good question, for example, that might be something that we try to figure out how can we assess local demand in a better way coming up.
I mean, you know, just speaking from my personal experience, if I'm looking for something, and I'm not, you know, I'm not in the upper 10% of your library patrons, you know, but when I search for something at the library, the first thing I would do is go online and look to see if I could find it online, and you know, and if I can't, then, well, then I move on to Plan B, whatever Plan B happens to be.
You could ask the librarians.
Yeah, that would, then if I went to the library, I could do that, but if I'm online from my house.
Well, and Rick, I think that what you're raising has a broader context, which is, you know, we're in a big transition time. If we turn the clock back 10, 15 years versus where we are now and try to extrapolate that change in habit, I'll just call it that for now, and extrapolate that out another 15 years, that's really hard. I think a lot, and Corinne is on the front lines and she knows better, but it just strikes me that it's really hard to figure out. Not exactly, but it's a challenge to figure out how libraries can better serve their communities 15 years down the road, given the rate of change that we've seen over the last 15 years. It's tough, and so, anyway.
Yeah, sure, thanks.
Yeah.
So the third objective, for this goal is to evolve to address the changing needs and interests of the community. So, you know, sort of what Fred is speaking to. The library will solicit feedback from the community regularly to inform services and to assure there are no avoidable gaps. So one of the things that libraries regularly do is just survey people, you know, and you try to survey your patrons, but you also try to survey people who are not your patrons. To see, you know, if we're not serving you, how can we? What are you looking for? What don't we have? The library will look to local, national, and international trends in planning, programming, and cultural collections. The library will hire and train staff to meet the needs of a growing community, and the library will develop and expand public and private funding sources. So our third and final goal is space. The library provides a nurturing, inclusive, and modern space to work, study, and socialize. The first objective for this goal is to serve as a hub regarding climate change and sustainability. The library will provide education and information about local, regional, and national issues and initiatives related to climate change and sustainability. The library will prioritize and pursue sustainable practices, utilities, and clean energy, and the library building will be integrated into the town's emergency infrastructure. So there was a lot of interest in, or not interest in, but a lot of people emphasize the importance of climate change and using the library as an educational forum to teach people about what they can do on a personal level in their own community to make a change. One of the things that we are working on right now is creating a pollinator garden on library grounds that we can use as for educational programming to teach about, you know, harvesting seeds, native plants, any number of things related to that, you know, where you can get kids on an actual physical level to see, touch, and feel, which is a much more powerful experience than just classroom learning. and to, bring together communities, people in the community that might not be together otherwise. I've been working with the West Newbury Wild and Native group on this, and they have a lot of great ideas, that support this idea, and, we're looking forward to working together in the future.
How frequently do people come in with questions regarding climate change sustainability or looking for materials on a pretty frequent basis currently?
Not necessarily on a frequent basis, you know, people aren't coming up to the counter and asking questions like that, but I think if we, model by example and offer programming that might pique someone's interest who may not be interested otherwise, that would be beneficial to the whole community.
So maybe the Energy Advisory Committee should have a program, rather than just have their tips for, that you have on your website, that have a program through the library offices.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I know you haven't gotten to the space issues yet, and I don't know how, I don't know how much questioning you want here, but, I know one of your limitations is meeting space. Is there any space in the library where a committee could meet?
Not really.
Yeah,
No.
okay.
And I will say that we are one of, I believe, 67 out of 360.
Yeah, no, I saw the metric
Yeah.
in there, but.
That doesn't have a meeting space in the state. So, I mean, we are really behind the times, especially with regard to renovation, I mean.
Yeah.
We're a small community and we don't have, the needs that larger communities do, but we still have people who, work from home, need a quiet space sometimes, or we have people that need to have meetings in private. We have groups that would love to have a meeting space to get together, but we can't provide it.
I'm tutoring.
Tutoring is another issue, tutors come in all the time, where's a quiet place we can study? Don't have one, sorry, but we want these people to stay and to be able to use the building, but if the building isn't set up to do that, there's just so much we can do.
What does that last bullet refer to?
We need a place in town where people, if you need a cooling center, you need charging stations, it's a public building that has a lot of space that could be utilized in the event of an emergency.
Yeah.
They have a plan in place to do that.
But part of what you would need then was redundancy for your electric supply. I mean, that would be one of the issues.
So this speaks to the space issue. The library will seek innovative design solutions. The library will seek to meet numerous needs based on innovative design and furnishing, using creative solutions to address space and construction limitations. The library grounds and courtyard will be accessible and well-designed for patron enjoyment and enrichment. The library will seek to explore, develop, and implement pioneering technological solutions wherever possible, and to create dedicated space for private study, large events and meetings, and proper storage of local history collections. We are limited with what we can do based on, the footprint of our building and being in a historic district. Our septic system also limits what we can do. But I think the children's room in the library is a great use of space where you can push all of those bookshelves to the side because they're on wheels and then make a bigger space. So I think if you get creative about how you can use your space, you can make big change without a huge, big price tag always. There was a lot of talk about using the grounds better and the courtyard better. We have really nice grounds that are totally underutilized. Our courtyard is not handicapped accessible, so we can't use that. Our second floor isn't handicapped accessible, so we can't use that. So there's a lot of opportunity in the building, but we have to be inventive with how we can best utilize that. And the third one for this one is to endeavor always to be inclusive to all groups and individuals. So the library will maintain its feels a place where everyone knows her name. Collections will be developed with the purpose of educating and enriching all members of the community. And the library will provide space for anyone in the community to gather, work, study, and socialize. So this is the, this is our action plan for FY '24, based on the strategic plan.
So on the left are the goals that are in the strategic plan,
The objectives, yeah.
the objective,
Mhm.
and on the right is at least thoughts about where we might head.
So one of the first things, the first one is to host a series of events that feature local residents interested in giving a talk in their personal area of expertise, which is what I mentioned earlier. Supporting schools, that's what I was talking about earlier, holding pop-up events at the Page and Pennsauken schools. Our youth services librarian has been to both Whittier and Pennsauken, and she's setting up times when the Groveland and Merrimack librarians can also be there at a table, you know, during some busy time when they're all transitioning. I'm not sure what time they've chosen. To promote library materials, to make sure for kids of the library card to say, hey, you know, you can access comic books with your library card, you know, you don't have to leave your bedroom. So we're working on that. We will begin processing and digitizing items in the archive based on a plan created in partnership with a professional archivist. So we just had an archivist come and assess our collection and create a processing plan for us, which advises not only on, you know, the best way to describe and accession each item, but how to best store it. You know, right now our boxes our collections literally just blue archival boxes stacked on top of each other in a recessed stage area in the finished attic. Makes it really hard for people to get access to that information if they want it. So the first step is processing it, and then digitizing will be the second. The library will coordinate with the COA to establish delivery for seniors or people with disabilities who do not have access to transportation. So I've been talking to Christine about, you know, the logistics of this, and I reached out to Angus too, just to get the ball rolling, to think about, you know, there are people in the community that can't get out, and they can't be left behind, you know, so we're gonna try to work together to do that.
That sounds like a really great idea, but how do you get to the nuts and bolts of that? It's tough.
It is, but it's not impossible. It just takes some coordination and, I think planning, you know, the COA van was a possible delivery type, you know, there's a lot of possibilities. We just have to figure out what they are. The library will town hall committees and boards to create a townwide calendar of events. So I know you already have a calendar of events on the town hall website, but you know, when I'm planning programming or when the garden club is planning programming in such a small town, you don't want to have 2 virtual events on the same night, because then you've lost your whole audience, right? You want to try to separate everything out and know what's going on, and it's pretty hard to figure out, you know, unless you go to each committee or board's separate website to gather all that information and see everything in one place. So that was the idea behind that.
So that would really be a community events calendar more than a West Newbury committee meeting
Yes.
calendar like we have now. I don't know how much the community events are on there.
Yeah, we something the
If
PTA could input their events, so that if there was a play happening at the Page School, we would know not to host a children's event that night because nobody's gonna come.
Yeah.
So it would just, and that, I don't think that would just benefit the people at the PTA or me. I think it would benefit everyone in the town to be able to see what's happening in a more clear way. For our second goal, the action items, the library will explore creating an audiovisual space for teens to gain skills editing and creating audiovisual recordings. So our new youth services librarian has joined the cable advisory committee, and she went to a convention in DC back in September with other youth services librarians, and came back really excited about the fact that other libraries are utilizing this cable access service to get kids into the library, to teach them video editing skills, to get them out in the community with cameras, interviewing people, things like that. And so she's joined that committee to try to work to get that to happen. The library will better market its digital offerings for adults, teens, and children, and the library will survey residents to determine preferences for the future with regard to the library space. And the third and final section is for space. This is what I was talking about earlier. The library will create a story walk sanctuary garden, a native plant pollinator garden to complement the existing story walk. The trustees will take appropriate action for renovation or expansion, and the library will start a diversity and inclusion book group. So, I think based on the plan, I learned a lot about the community doing this. And it was so much easier for me to come up with an action plan for FY24 than it has been for all the years I've been here.
Because of the survey.
Because I had this fresh information,
Okay.
and because of COVID, our previous strategic plan had expired in 2020. And because of COVID, they gave all libraries an extension because it's really hard to do a strategic plan in the middle of a pandemic. So we waited 2 years to try to get the best information. And I was creating action plans based on a really outdated strategic plan. But I felt like, this action plan was really well matched with the current community, and it's the things that this community values.
Just to play devil's advocate, the demographics of the people that did the survey was, a lot of people were people in my age bracket, and I think there were a lot fewer in the younger age brackets.
There was a mix. I mean, I think it was like 55% or so was over 65. And then there was
that's a lot though.
It is, and then there was a bulk in the middle.
We had the written survey as well, did we not? I don't know if we know any demographics from that. But that was also input.
Yeah,
I don't, was there a question on that, an age, age category type question that?
yeah, one of the last questions on the survey, but one thing about because of that, we had the survey information back before I created the planning committee. And I was careful to include parents of young children on that committee. We had 2 teenagers on the committee. We tried to get voices other than over 65.
Okay.
And I think we're fortunate on the Board of Trustees to have some of that as well. That kind of diversity, age diversity, and situational diversity in terms of, do you have a young family? Are you retired, or are you working, but your kids are older or out of the house recently? Until they come back.
I thought it was very, very interesting. I enjoyed reading it, okay? I had one problem
Sure.
on page 7. And you don't have to look it up, but I just didn't like that we kind of threw our other 2 members of the Pentucket School District under the bus by complaining about them voting against the override. I just didn't think we should be casting aspersions on our partners
Yeah,
in a document that's coming from the town. I have a little problem with that.
Yeah, I included that because it changed the budget at the school, obviously, and it made it so at the time, the high school librarian, because that failed, had no budget for anything at all. No books, no new database subscription.
I know, but
So
it's sort of, we're getting
understand your point, yeah.
political in
Sure.
something that I don't think we should have gotten into.
Sure.
I think we're we're supposed to be partners with them, not throwing stones.
it didn't seem to me like throwing stones, it just seemed like a fact,
But I don't think it's relevant to the
Oh.
West Newbury Library.
yeah.
The only reason it's relevant is because if there is no budget for anything at the high school library, it only emphasizes more that the public library really needs to step up there and fill that gap. And that was what I was getting at.
That was
So-
the context when we reviewed it, that we looked at it. It was not. There was certainly no intention to cast aspersions, other than to make the point that the library of Pentucket, is in trouble. Or was. Wherever it
I
stands
think
now.
they've since rectified it, and I
Yeah.
think she did get some sort of budget, but I don't know specifics on that.
So you mentioned the youth librarians working together from the three towns,
Mhm.
or is there any other collaboration with Groveland and Merrimack in terms of assisting schools?
Well, the children's librarians also do work together, but they have separate schools.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so, it's really up to the youth librarians or the teen librarians.
Oh, so that's youth 12 to 18?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And we are part of the Merrimack Valley Consortium,
Mhm.
which is at least I view it, I don't participate in it, but I know Corinne does quite heavily. It's, if you will, a clearinghouse for ideas, for problems, for whatever. There's a lot of communication that goes on amongst the libraries in that consortium.
I have one question, and it was in there, and I've had this question for even way back when I was signing off invoices from, now I don't have to look at that, but I used to, and one thing I've always wondered about is why, and I had asked the previous librarian about it, and why the library, why we're spending tax dollars to buy discounted tickets for whatever,
You don't-
the Isabella
You
Stewart
don't-
Gardner Museum or
The
whatever.
friends of the library pay for that.
Oh, really? Okay,
Private funding.
okay, well, that's really interesting, okay.
Has it always been the case?
I can't speak to what happened before I started, but then.
I think it's a great community benefit.
But I have a problem with if it was that way, I used to have a problem with somebody on a fixed income spending their tax money so that some probably family that has plenty of money can go to the Sturbridge Village or whatever.
But if you think about it in a microcosm, that's kind of what a library is, you know, it could be that someone can't afford a book or whatever it is, or they don't have the internet. And so all of our tax money, that's not what's happening there because the friends pay for it, but all of the tax
I'm
money
happy now.
is
Yeah.
subsidizing something that someone else may or may not be able to access.
It's the same argument for schools.
Yeah,
If
no,
you don't have kids.
it's across the board for town services.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people, pick your service, some people take advantage of it, some people don't. And for, and in both cases, whether they're taking advantage of it or not, it's for unique circumstances to that individual. So, I mean,
But Archie does.
I understand you're good with it now, but I, just in general, it's
Well,
it's
I would also comment that Archie, I think, makes a point that is worth keeping in mind, which is if we offer very targeted services, just to make sure that to the extent we can make them as equitable as possible, that would be something to consider as we go along, if that's a way of putting it.
And it is something we do consider, if I track all the database usage, if only a small number of people are using it, I can't justify spending, $4,000 annually on it. I have to think, how many people are going to use this resource? It's an important question.
And actually, that's exactly what an accession policy does, which is to say, you look at how many people use what category of books. And over time, literally a collection let's just take, a World War II history, right? If that's not a popular item, then you might not want to obtain as many resources there. And you might want to divert it to whatever there seems to be a greater demand for.
I had a couple of questions on some of the data, but I can send those to you separately. Cover the, like the registered voters and amount of growth didn't seem to align with some of the numbers we have, so,
Sure,
but I can send those to you separately.
please.
So just a, not a long answer or anything, but just, so what were your thoughts, Ari, the Old Town Hall, what you, that was mentioned as a expansion area, what's sort of the idea, it must have come up, so what's the thinking?
I think ideally we would prefer to stay in our own space.
Okay,
It's a more ideal solution to be on our own grounds, in our own building, and not have people crossing that dangerous street in the dark or during the day even. But it remains to be seen if we have options in the building and what they are. Well, we have to investigate those.
so does it, you mentioned something about, just to be practical, that would the existing septic system preclude doing something bigger by making more square footage? Does that then imply that there can be more people there, which then gets to the limit of the septic system? Or I don't know, I'm just throwing that out. I don't know.
There are a million questions like that that would have to be answered. There really are.
Okay.
And for right now, on an informal basis, there are some programs that are using some not ongoing programs, but when I say programs, like tonight is, history of West Newbury, Native Americans or something. If sometimes those programs are held at Old Town Hall, but it is not anything that's a regular event or regular usage. It's just from time to time that's used.
But for a larger group, that seems like a good idea, yeah.
Well,
Parking is just the
Yeah,
challenge.
parking, and I agree with you, Corinne. I mean, I'm maybe I wouldn't say terrified, but I'm concerned about people crossing the street, particularly at night. That can be a dangerous corner.
It would need to be addressed.
and we also know that the building needs some renovation. So we're, I don't know if we're loath to use it, but we use it with caution, if you will.
It's a good two-season building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with the sewer system, it's the physical constraints that, where the septic field and everything is.
Oh,
is
so
like
then you can't encroach
yeah, you
on
can't
it.
move out.
Okay.
I don't, maybe capacity is an issue as well, but I think it is the physical.
Just literally, you can't build something on top of the field, okay.
Maybe we should think about an elevated pedestrian walkway over the.
Well, we've talked about it at the library, or a tunnel.
A
Yeah.
tunnel.
There you go.
Or a red light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll get going real big. I expect a helicopter.
Well, this is really great. Thank you for doing the presentation, especially the action plan. It's good to see that you've already embarked on some of the things that you're planning for next year, so. That's really
Yeah, we're excited about it. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
And we're happy to come back,
as things.
we have
mature.
more specifics in mind, but you can see that it's really just an ongoing process.
Mhm.
And I will say that we are very fortunate to have a library director who is very active in figuring out all these knotty problems and looking ahead to the future big time. We appreciate her every month when we meet and all the times in between.
Good.
I did have just one last question regarding space issues. I know, 2 years ago or so, there were, I heard a fair amount of discussion about space and, trying to figure out how the space could be otherwise utilized, not the existing space, but I mean, the footprint of the, working outside of the existing footprint of the building, maybe doing something else with the courtyard, have you had an architect look at it? Is that something that you've contemplated? Does it make sense?
Well, it might make sense, and we certainly thought about it for a while, but we realized that it was really beyond our bandwidth to be able to handle a project like that.
Yeah.
We would need town personnel and consultants to come in and do that work, because we're a volunteer group of 9 folks, many of whom are employed or raising families, and we just don't have the ability to be, to launch a project like that, where we're the tip of the spear, if you will.
But that would be the logical first step, right? So if you're looking at options for.
Right, yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that the library board of trustees would ever take a project on like that on their own, but, looking out in the future, just understanding what the options are, is, what plausible options exist.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
everybody.
much. I hope
Thank
we have
you.
not taken too much of your time, but we appreciate this opportunity
Yeah,
very
great,
much.
thanks.
Thank you.
No, it's awesome. Fred, you were,
To the minute.
you were
We have one more
concise,
minute.
you were concise, yeah.
Usually I go 20 minutes over.
Thank you.
You should see me try to fit my slides into 2 hours of talking about the Gulf of Maine, and I had 150 slides, and it doesn't work out. Got to pare them down.
Hey.
Oh, see, there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Right
guys.
on time.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I can grab my markers too.
Everyone,
Bye.
right.
Thank you.
So if we could take item C out of order.
Yes,
And so that you have an action item before you, but we also want to take the opportunity to, highlight public announcement, and this, I'll leave that to Chief Dwyer, but the action item is with regard to the school resource officer agreement with Pentucket. And this is before you tonight to provide any guidance on whether in extending that path to FY23, whether there were any changes other than simply updating the dates and updating the financial agreement to reflect the cost of living that's happened the last couple of years. But with that, I've been talking to Chief Dwyer for a while now about the opportunity to bring in Officer Torero for a public announcement of his appointment to that position, so.
Good evening. So yeah, very excited. So all of you know, Officer Torero, Officer Manny, as he's probably going to be referred to from now on. He just recently graduated from the academy this December, and now he's returned to West Newbury. And he's now going to take over the assignment of SRO for the middle high school. So I'm really excited about this. This is definitely in his wheelhouse. He can certainly speak to it, but he certainly had a lot of experience working with schools prior to coming to West Newbury. So we're really excited to have him. The schools are already excited to have him there as well. So yeah, we're really, it's gonna be great.
so how was the academy? You glad to get that done, or was it good, or?
It was, the beginning was a little tough, but like towards the middle and towards the end, I came to like appreciate the process, but I'm glad it's over, yeah.
Passed with flying colors, everything. So yeah, you did a really good job.
Good, but it's good, it's in the rearview mirror.
Yes, yeah, it's a nice place for it to be.
Yeah.
So what kind of transition will there be, or have you already started working on that between the two of you?
Yeah, so he picked it up really quick. There's still a few things that we're gonna have to work out just over time. But he's Great.
Great.
The admin team, the safety team at the school has already known him. The great thing about Manny, when he came to West Newbury, he involved himself in the schools, no matter what, even if he wasn't the SRO at the time. So everybody there already knows him, knows what he's capable of, and even the summer rec, he would participate with them over the summer up at the Page School. But yeah, he's transition's gonna be easy.
Great.
Chief, if you can just tell the board about the process that you went through to select a new SRO, and there was engagement with the Kentucky administration, and that was just so they understand what you went through for that.
Yeah, so we had we had an interview process that was involved with the admin from both the middle school and the high school. So it was the assistant principals, the principals, and the assistant superintendent that met with the candidates first for a set of interviews. And then there was a second round of interviews that was with the superintendent, Dr. Bartholomew, and me, with the candidates. And that was the process we used, which was pretty smooth. We had 2 people internal that applied for the job, and Manny scored high.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Great.
Thank you. So over the next year, he's going to be doing some trainings that are both required, and also some specialized trainings that are going to be important for him to have for that role. He's going to go to the School Resource Officer Academy, which is a 5-day training in April. April vacation, so he'll be there. That's going to be down in Randolph. And then there's going to be some other sort of specialized trainings that he will go through that will help the police department, but it'll also help the schools as well.
And so on a day-to-day basis, is it a full-time SRO position? It is, okay.
Yeah, so it's Monday through Friday.
Just school hours?
School hours,
Yeah.
and he's primarily assigned to the middle and high school.
Mhm.
On certain days, he will take trips over to the Page School, but primarily his responsibility will be at Pentucket.
Well, there's big shoes to fill. I'm sure you can do it though.
Well, I want to thank you for stepping up. It's
Yeah.
not everybody that wants to do that, so that's great, yeah.
No, it's wonderful.
Sounds like you're going into it with a really good positive attitude. That's important.
It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, so when I got into policing, so I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. Nice.
He's already full of ideas.
All right. Gonna show you out, Mike.
That's fine. I hope he does.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So congratulations, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What did you say? Or?
I know, unless, I don't know, on the agreement itself, if you have substantive thoughts on that, maybe before the chief leaves, but if you just,
You should take a picture.
yeah,
Yeah.
good, that's great. Maybe, how about with the board, how about over?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Just Wendy asked.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, if you guys want to be in the photo.
They were really looking forward to it.
Great, good, thank you.
Chief, you want my laptop?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
We already, well, I don't know, do we have to reauthorize it a second time or?
yeah, the way it's written,
I
it's,
think so,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was self-renewing. Thanks, have a good night. It was, I think it was self-renewing annually, but just 2 times, right?
that's right, yeah,
But only for a while, exactly, yeah. So somebody make a motion.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just about the compensation from the school district. Do you think what it's set at is still appropriate, or does it need to be increased?
I believe so. I mean, right now where Manny started, halfway into the year, I think it'll be fine.
Okay,
But I think when I was in that position, obviously the cost of all of my totals were a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Right, so actually,
on
so
balance.
It actually might be better.
Yeah, financially, there's probably a net advantage from the town standpoint now.
Okay. And-
Yeah, part of the thinking on that, back when this agreement was put in place a few years ago, obviously the compensation of any specific officer is gonna vary based on, among other things, longevity, rank premium, educational incentives, so on and so forth, and because the chief is the appointing authority for the SRO, even though that's supposed to be and has been collaborative with the school, it is up to the chief, and it was important in setting this agreement that be clear. And so, we were concerned about the school, feeling like if their share was relative to, say, the actual pay of the actual individual, as opposed to a different amount, that they would stand to gain or to lose depending on which specific officer was appointed. And we wanted to make sure it was clear that the chief had that authority, and that those decisions would be made not for financial reasons, but for what officer is best suited for the position. So a certain dollar amount was agreed, and Pentucket agreed to fix 2.5% each year cost of living, which is what they've done. In my opinion, that continues to be an appropriate offset.
Okay.
The other thing, Wendy, when we were first coming up with it and figuring out the dollars on it, as the schools are mostly in West Newbury, when there is some kind of an issue there, West Newbury police are always going to be the ones first there or called down there. So there was sort of a fixed cost to the town of a higher cost to West Newbury than there would be obviously to Merrimack and even Groveland. So are we ever going to have it perfect? No, but in this case, we're actually, if there wasn't an SRO, then there'd still be times when we'd have to send officers down there, and that cost now is somewhat mitigated.
Also, by having an SRO, we may actually reduce our costs otherwise.
That's true too, yeah.
By
Preemptive.
yeah, exactly, by preempting any problems.
Mhm.
The thing I was wondering about, some small portion of the middle school, high school campus is in Groveland. Is there an agreement with Groveland so that our officer can be in Groveland, and I don't know how that intermunicipal policing works, so.
Yeah, that was a lot more important when the physical middle school building was in play.
Right.
We're gonna be revisiting all those agreements again, just nature of the new construction project.
Yeah,
But you're absolutely right, that portion of the driveway is still.
right, yeah, it's not much, but there's a little bit there, and but it sounds like you got a nail, so.
Yeah, agreements were in place.
Yeah, okay, great.
Go to the next.
The building is now more in West Newbury.
Right,
than it
exactly,
was, yeah.
right, yeah, so there's, lower likelihood that there would ever be any reason for him to have to, perform police type duties outside of West Newbury and in Groveland, but it still exists, so.
Okay, thanks.
So, did somebody make a motion? Or
No, we haven't.
Okay, yeah, I believe that we would, extend the current agreement with the Pentucket Regional School District for, another 3-year period, for similar to the current agreement, annually renewing with the same, inflation adjustment, each year of 2.5%.
Or greater, right?
So,
Did you say what's greater in there?
Yeah.
Well, it depends, if the contractual COLA is greater,
Okay,
then it would translate.
oh, okay,
So let's have a fixed end date, so.
okay, so this would be starting then for FY 24, so 25, 26.
Yeah.
So, it would.
No, aren't we doing this?
Well, the way the current one's written is it was for a year with up to 2 additional 1-year extensions. So I think if you keep that same one, it would be for FY 24 with the option to extend
For more years.
25 or 26.
Okay,
Is that good?
Yeah, second,
So, yeah, so that, in that case, it would end, the extensions would end, in June 30th, 2026.
second.
further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
That's great. Thank you very much. Back to item B is to do with a proposal that I didn't look at the packet if it's already before CPC. but
No,
they
we
haven't-
decided to wait because the meetings were so
Oh,
close
that's
together.
right, that's
Yeah.
right, until February.
So we just have to put a placeholder in for the warrant.
So yeah, the intent is to put in a proposal to CPC to transfer from the community housing CPA fund into the Affordable Housing Trust. Both the 10% as well as the balance that's accumulated up to this point. So the objective is to put that application in on behalf of the select board, so it's before you tonight for your questions or endorsement.
My only question was, you just went by it, the yellow, the highlighted dollar figures don't match.
Yeah, this is just estimated. I mean,
But
I had the numbers as
they're
of the-
different.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I
okay,
have the numbers as of the end of November, and so I just need to get updated numbers as of the end of December. So I just highlighted so I remember to. So I think the remaining balance or the existing balance is like 173,000. That's how much we've accumulated by putting 10% in over time. And then whatever the 10% is for this year. So it's
okay,
roughly
okay.
225.
So haven't we, used the majority of the funds in the housing section when had we authorized use of the majority of those funds for the improvements to the, housing authority, properties, back 3 years ago? So,
Yeah, there's
so it's just 3 years, the 173 then reflects just 3 years accumulation. Is that-
there was something in addition to that. I
Yeah.
don't think all of the funds for
Okay.
that were expended, but I'd have to go back and
Right,
look.
that's right.
Yeah,
Did that project actually get completed?
It did, yeah.
and along with this application, I'm working on a draft grant agreement between the trust and the CPC that'll stipulate how the money's spent, because we don't have, the trust will not go back to the CPC every time we spend money. So we won't have an agreement about how the money's spent, and there's certain restrictions on it, so that's not in the packet, but that'll be part of,
Certain restrictions from
from the CPC.
CPA,
From CPA, yeah,
Okay.
about use of funds.
slightly less. So will that handicap your ability to use it or no?
Not handicap, but
But
they can only be
so-
used on specific things.
Okay,
Yeah, so there would be an accounting set up on the trust side so that these funds, once transferred, would be kind of earmarked because they can, just because they're going into the trust, they still are constrained by eligible purposes for CPA.
okay, that's, yeah,
And they have to be
The trust
tracked,
Could
so-
have, the trust has some more
flexibility, okay,
Yeah, so it would need to be tracked. separately.
okay.
Whereas the funds that came from, the OSP, from the development,
Oh, right.
The
right.
inclusionary.
yeah, the inclusionary funds, they don't have a similar construction.
They have restrictions in the trust. They can only be
Okay.
used for purposes that are allowable under the trust.
But it's a different set of restrictions.
It's broader, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you need two different accounts, or is that gonna be hard to?
I don't think, I think it would just be an accounting exercise within, I think the monies could be aggregated in the bank, but there need to be an accounting of them separately.
Okay,
Yeah, something that, the treasurer would have to work out.
So once this.
the bank doesn't need to know.
Yeah, the bank.
Yeah,
doesn't have
okay.
to- Yeah.
Okay,
So with this 172 added on, how much was there already from the inclusionary?
190-ish.
Yeah.
190 or something, yes.
Okay. So it's somewhere ballpark is 360 now,
Mhm.
or will be once this is done.
Yeah, and part of the action plan we're working on with the housing consultant is to look at, money in and money out over the 3-year of the action plan.
Yeah.
So it accounts for those as well as projected, contributions to the inclusionary housing plan.
Okay.
going forward.
And in future years, will we have to vote on this at every town meeting each year?
Yeah,
Okay,
even if we have a grant agreement in place, the town has to authorize it every year.
yeah, okay.
When did you do, so you just say we should do something or not do something at the moment?
We should, I just, Angus was asking if this was on the CPC's agenda for Thursday, and I didn't feel like it could be because we haven't voted on it yet. But we'll just put a placeholder in for this warrant article, but if you can approve it now,
Yeah, okay.
then we can move ahead.
All right, well, unless there's more discussion, I'd move that, we authorize, transfer of the, CPA, community housing balance, funds, to the, housing trust, affordable housing trust, fund.
If you could approve the eligibility and the funding application specifically, that would be helpful.
Yeah, what you're doing is approving the submittal of those to CPC
Okay.
on your back.
Okay, so it's eligibility and,
There's an eligibility application and a funding application. These don't seem like the right mechanism to make this transfer, but that's
Yeah,
what's done.
okay. So, all right, so I would move that we then approve the funding and the eligibility, mechanisms to transfer the, CPA community housing balance
Second,
to the trust.
discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Item D is regarding the COVID protocol, which sunset at the end of December, and we did have a staff inquiry. We've done some additional research that I had sent out over the weekend and earlier today. On the basis of the responses we got, my recommendation would be to take no action, but if you guys see it differently, then we ought to talk about that. But by taking no action, it would mean that the protocols would continue to be sunset, which in effect would mean that time missed from work due to COVID would now count against accrued leave, which up through December it did not.
And so, a close contact is not required to be out anymore, right?
Unless this is resuscitated, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I can see for continuing it. If we require that an employee cannot come to work if they've been in close contact, then, that's a reason to continue it, but I mean, most places have phased that out as well. So.
So Angus, did you get a vibe or any, I read the thing from Boston, but nowhere else is doing it at all?
Another email a while ago.
Yeah, just a couple of hours ago, there were another 4 or 5 responses that came.
I didn't see those.
There wasn't a single community that is continuing to
To do that.
The timeline.
Okay,
Of those who responded.
okay, so we don't have to do anything.
We just do nothing.
We just let it ride, yeah. Okay,
Would you rather have a motion or is it?
No, I think it already sunset, so I think what we'll do is we'll advise the employee who requested, and then we can send something around just to remind people that these have lapsed.
Okay.
Next item's meeting minutes.
it was funny, we were doing stuff.
I
We
think
were
Rebecca
doing
does this on
stuff.
purpose.
Wait a minute, didn't we just do this? No, this was a year ago that we,
Yeah.
She was gonna really figure out, do the January like 16 minutes, 2022, and just see if you guys noticed the year change.
Under A, it should be Jeff Durand with a D. And he is also not mentioned as participating in the meeting as one of the participants.
It should be Jeff, remember the now.
Duran.
He appreciates that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had nothing that I picked up on.
I had a question on, let's see. It was about the item G on the next page.
Which one, Ruby?
Item G, the public hearing on the overtime assessment, page 65 of the packet. The second sentence, well, let me see, the third sentence, Jennings stated that the choice was generally up to the employee. And is that what you meant? That doesn't seem accurate.
Oh, no, okay, yeah, that's not quite accurate. No, that's certain numbers over, okay, for the overtime pay. If someone works, it's whether they get paid overtime or take comp time.
And they can
That-
choose?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
So, but I think versus overtime pay, might I clarify that a little? I don't know if that's the same in every organization, that I think the employer can prescribe it, but,
Mhm.
that's how it really hasn't come up much, but.
Okay. That was all I had.
Just add the word pay after overtime.
Motion,
I move to accept the minutes of November 15th, 2021 as amended.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, item F, you already have this information, but the actual report came out, I think, on the day of your last meeting, so. It wasn't in the packet, the last packet at all, it was just a much more cursory write-up, it was a more detailed write-up. Just documenting that the town now has AAA status. With Moody's, same as it got last summer with Standard & Poor's. Next item, Archie had asked for kind of a mid-year report on expenses and revenues, so that's what you got there.
So I had a question on this, and since you're here, Mike, on the fire, there's a set aside or a line item for hydrant. Let's see if I can find it. Mapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing has been spent on that. Is that still planning to happen this year?
I think that went through the last pay cycle. They usually hold on, they send us one bill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a single expense. It's
Yeah.
actually set in the water rate study.
Mhm.
Yeah, the water rate study has a specific amount. And that's just transferred over. It's a one-time transfer. It could be in July, it could be in June, just sometime over this fiscal year.
Okay. I think this is a good thing to do, you know, at the half year
Mhm.
mark.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, some things like, okay, we pay our Essex retirement, which is a huge chunk, and we pay that in, you know, in July, so that alone throws the whole budget up, because we're not divvying it up to 12 months or whatever, but even so, it does give you, at this point, at 6 months, it does show you sort of where we stand.
Yeah.
Those two, and it looks like we had 7 payments of the Pentucket, so you got the
Yeah.
Essex retirement and 7 payments of Pentucket instead of 6, so that's right there, that really changes the numbers,
Yeah.
but
and all the debt services were paid.
yeah. We get a little discount, I believe, on on the Essex retirement because we pay,
It's a
Oh,
pretty
wow.
significant.
because we pay it in advance, yeah.
How much did you say it is again?
I'm testing my memory, but I think it might be 3%.
It's something, it's okay, then. So 20 grand or something, yeah.
Is that because no one else does it? Is that why?
Well, I think it's, I'm sure to assist with their cash flow,
Mhm.
you know, needs for communities that are in a position to do it, to incentivize them to do it.
Well, hopefully, if you think about it, if they can, if they're planning, if their discount rate is they're planning on earning 7% a year, and they get it for 6 months, that's 3.5% is half of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the town accountant prepares reports every month and sends them around to department heads and boards and committees to have their departments year to date, so that happens monthly, but yeah, we can provide these to the board anytime. It's really quick to run them.
So is there much use, for you to look at different departments? I mean, month to month and.
Yeah, there is, it's something I did more of in my last job where I wasn't wearing 3 hats.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that, but it would be inaccurate to tell you I scrutinize them every month. I don't have time. That's one of the things I should be doing.
Mhm.
That because we're so busy, we don't. But the town accountant definitely keeps a close eye,
Mhm.
and if something seems out of whack. And the other thing, actually, just in case, for anyone listening after the fact, just so everyone knows, I do personally sign off on every penny the town expends. So I am putting time in on that, but in terms of the monthly statements, it's not something that, there's not really.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's even useful with month to month, if you can assume.
Well, it
every
is
12
for pay.
Yeah, for
payroll
payroll.
is one of the ones
Yeah,
that
but,
does show up,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is something, I mean, I think anyone in municipal management, as it gets into May and June, you wanna make sure you don't have people like going on a buying spree at the end of the
Yeah.
fiscal year just because they have the money. You wanna make sure that every expense is justified and, if that means there's a turn back, that you'd rather that than have someone going out. I mean, it's hard, honestly though, it's hard to think of like frivolous expenses because there are, sometimes departments may wait if they want books or resources, things like that. They may wait till May or June to see if they have the money. That doesn't make it a frivolous expense. It just, that's a part of their budgeting, managing their own budget. So.
Yeah.
Is that something like that? Would that have been explained when the budget was originally created? Would you have seen that level of detail as to what was planned to be purchased? Say books for,
It really depends on the department.
Okay.
Some departments, I mean, just an easy example, the building inspector is going to get the updated code every year, and that's going to be a known expense going into the year. Others, some departments do put in a fair amount of detail in the budgets they submit to me. Others provide, very little detail. So I can always go through and I do this as does the town accountant. We can go through the detail of the past couple of years and see every expense, every purchase. And we see that every week because we go through the AP warrant. So we end up having a pretty good idea of what the departments are spending money on. But I definitely tell people going into the year, especially on things like travel and training, think ahead, think of what you think you're going to go to. And, you don't know exactly what's going to be offered any given year, but if you're going to be, traveling or lodging or conference fees, you want to make sure you budget properly for that so that, so it's not just like you hope the money's there.
Mhm.
We're good?
Yep.
All right, next item is just, informational, the expression of interest that was submitted last week for the River Road project. This is in anticipation of submitting a grant application once the next grant round is announced, which last year I think it was announced in March.
Yeah, it was announced in March
This spring.
and due 6 weeks later, which wasn't a lot of time, but
Right.
unfortunately, we're way ahead of it, yeah, we're pretty far along. I mean, considering.
So can you remind me what the process is, the expression of interest? That's a requirement for the,
It's not a requirement, but, you anticipate valuable feedback about what your grant and, you know, what you anticipate applying for a grant.
yeah,
And if there are strengths or weaknesses, last year being an example, you know,
Mhm.
strengths and weaknesses were both pointed out, you know, for us to think about. So, you know, obviously the end goal is to be awarded the grant, so, although you're not required to, it behooves you to submit a letter of interest and or expression of interest and, you know, use the feedback.
and how quickly do you get feedback?
I don't know, I mean, I would think within a couple of 3 weeks from now, we'll have feedback. Last year, I think we got it pretty promptly, but, I don't recall there being any specific stated timeframe. They're handling them on a rolling basis. So they began accepting expressions of interest back in December, sometime mid-December. It was right before the holidays. You know, we submitted ours a week to 10 days before the closing of the window.
Mhm. Well, it's great that Christine is able to work with.
Yeah,
them.
no, that helps a lot, yeah. There's, you know, it's been a real team effort. I mean, Christine is great, and is really important. But it has been a real team effort, I think, from, you know, everybody else on
Mhm.
the committee.
Great.
And for item I don't have anything specific prepared unless there's questions you have on other projects that we're working on.
Good.
Okay,
Great.
So I move to adjourn.
Or to recess.
Yeah,
to recess.
recess to the executive session.
I move to recess to executive session.
Second,
all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
do you need a roll call for this? Because,
Yeah.
Parker,
are we voting to go into executive session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do we need to read the reasons?
Yeah,
All right, Archie, let me do it.
make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, Section 21A2, Section 21A6, and Section 21A7. All those in favor? Archibald, aye.
Reed, I.
Parker, I gotta run out to my car for a second.
All right, and the
So,
board will be reconvening in open session solely for the purpose of adjourning the meeting.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.